And Justice to Jesus, Brian Pitts.
All right.
Welcome, Mr. Pitts.
See him in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
See a traveler?
Mm-hmm. It's in Hillsborough over there. Yeah, last week. Thank you much to the delegation. Good to see some of you on the other side of town, or should I say other side of the county. State. Other side of the state. That's a better term. 4 issues. Some of you may have heard it before. The elections bill. Now it's time to bring it up. Mr. Chair, don't bring it up late like last time. You know, Representative Merzen brought the thing up, and people was going crazy up there. God, don't do that when you got a bill that large doing that. Nevertheless, you need to this time because if you're familiar, 2 courts have stricken several parts of the election code. The hometown democracy was successful in getting the language for revocation of initiatives stricken. It's dead. Florida Supreme Court killed that. So now you have to change something. Also, Broward Coalition on condominiums was successful in getting several statutes for electioneering communications stricken from the Northern District in Tallahassee of the federal court. So now you actually have to do something with the elections code. Because what happens is if those 2 areas have been stricken, what's the indirect ramifications of the other statutes in the election code? So you have to get with staff and everybody to figure out how to kind of clear that up. You definitely have to repeal several statutes at this point because the courts have dealt with it. So that's elections reform. State revenue reform. Y'all been trying to do that for some time. Bergenoff tried to deal with the exemptions. I think she tried to deal with, Representative Bergenoff tried to deal with, I think, with 265, something like that.
Boganoff.
Okay, yeah, Boganoff. Sorry, so many names, hey. She tried to deal with it. She was not successful. Again, I tried to help you a little bit on this. The Tax and Budget Reform Commission dealt with all that stuff in the 2007, 2008. If you look in their transcripts and their annals, they deal with different ways how to deal with generating revenue. One of the issues that Senator Herodopoulos brought up was interesting was the TABOR. Why? Because that's exactly one of the things they had brought up. It was successfully defeated in the TBRC. Well, Herodopoulos didn't like that form, so he said, okay, let me tweak it a little bit and make the form that I like. And everybody went crazy last session, and he had everybody for the ride and did not take it on. But he may well go full-fledged with it this time. So, solutions to the state revenue problem reform in Florida is the annal records of the Tax and Budget Reform Commission of 2007, 2008. No brainer, you don't have to think hard. State reform of criminal justice. I know that Senator Victor Chris is dealing with that, but now we see a proliferation of things. The grand jury has now been set for the statewide corruption issue. D. Alibert, I think it was, has filed a petition in the Supreme Court to sign an innocence commission. As we know, right across the street, Mr. Bain was just released not too long ago on that very issue. So stuff is going crazy. The Commission on Ethics has now asked that you make stiffer laws against yourselves so that they may have further latitude to prosecute. Now, JTJ brought that before y'all some time ago, that you needed to stiffen the language, even in the Commission on Ethics on that issue. And Senator Constantine had a bill that kind of was just messing with it a little bit. It dealt with contractors who worked for local government. It was just a small little thing. Well, now the Commission on Ethics is seen. So now you see ethics reform, or what you call state public officials reform you need. Now, last point. Oh, by the way, some of this stuff, the majority and minority office does have language, so I just don't, complain or anything. The minority and majority office does have some language, which J2J is trying to assist to help you with. So that staff, if you want to check with them, they do have some language to deal with some of these issues. Oh, and by the way, I'm sure you may know, Senator Dockery, the Supreme Court has approved the language for the no indiscriminate shackling. So that bill, you may not need to do anymore. And they use some of the typed language that was in the bills of Senator Siplin and Wilson. Now, Senator Wilson, last issue, we got a very house cleaning issue. Ever since 1968, when the last major revision of the Constitution was done, there was language put in Article 2, Section 5, subsection B. And this is what it says. So it's not an excuse to term outers either. This is what it says. The powers, duties, compensation, and method of payment of state and county officers shall be fixed by law. That's in Constitution. Article 3, Section 5, subsection paragraph B. Okay, here's the problem. Florida Statute 11.13 has salaries, but they're wrong for you. It got y'all making 18 and leadership making 25K. We know y'all don't make that. Well, the Constitution says...
It's not much more than that, Brian. It's not much more than that.
Give us a break. It's not much more than that.
Okay, no, that's not the point, though. You make an oath to uphold the Constitution, protect, support, defend, which is the subsection right before that in the same Constitution. Well, you got to protect and defend that. We need to put in statute our right salaries. But also in 11.13 is not there is your powers and duties. Now, I understand what Representative Granvano was trying to say. Well, isn't that in the rules? No. The Constitution is fixed by law. That's interpreted as meaning in statute. Now, not only that, your rules does not say specifically what your actual duty is. In other words, I come to your office and I can tell you I've done it. I can come to your office and you'll say, well, I'm not responsible for that, or I don't handle that, I don't handle that. That's what I do. At the end of the day, so well, actually, if I go to my actual representative or senator's office, what actually is your specific duty? Well, okay, the Constitution has reapportionment y'all deal with, and you may or may not file bills, and, okay, the budget. But as a specific state senator or representative, what is your specific duty? And this is what I'll give you one example of how this is. Well, I'm only dealing with legislation that deals with issues and problems in my district. Wait a minute. When it goes to the floor, it's going to affect everybody's district. So is that a duty specifically for you? Because if not, we need that in that very statute that any legislature is to consider only issues in their particular district when filing bills. That's not in your rules. But I've heard many of you say that from time to time on issues. See what I'm talking about? Specifically, what is your duty as a state officer apart from the rules? Now, again, the rules only say generally as a body what the legislature is to do, not what you individually ought to do. In other words, must you or must you not file bills? Is that in your discretion? As an individual member. Must you or must you not file claim bills? There are some of you, this is why I don't do that. Well, you have to practice the discretion, but you can't say not at all. Well, where in law does it say I have to do that? See what I'm talking about? You can get in where specific duties are, but here again, I can make the argument all I want. The issue is it's the Constitution says fixed by law. So, in 11.13, yes, the language is in the majority and minority party. You can look at it if you want to or not. In 11.13, Florida statute, you need to put there the correct salaries, and you need to put some formation of general duties of what you are or are not to do. That's what the Constitution says. That's not my argument. It's in the Constitution. So, I want to share that with you. Of course, I'll see you all later. And do have a good, happy holidays and get ready for January. Thank you much.
It's always interesting, Mr. Pitts. Next up.